Hey guys, this is MoPower again, going to be doing a Squire video for you today. Now this is for those new players that want to know about the different classes, so I'm doing a little mini video of each class and how to use their towers and the pros and cons to each tower. Now you may be saying, hey, my Squire doesn't look like that, what's going on? Well, this is the female version of the Squire, this is the Countess. Now, as far as a tower spec Squire, their abilities, they summon the same thing, they're pretty much the same. The only difference, and the reason I recommend them, is their run speed is much higher. Recently, in the last month or so, they did a little nerf to the speed of the male Squire. Now, because of that, when you start a new Squire, I'm actually going to show you here how ridiculously slow the male Squire is. And because of that, I will never make a male Squire again. I mean, look how slow this is. That's just bad. I mean, it makes it so ridiculously slow for getting around the map. Now, because of that, you'll want to dump the first about 20 points in the speed just to be able to get around and do stuff while you're playing a character. So, I would suggest being the female if you can, just for the movement speed. Now, I'll go over the towers. Now, the first tower you're going to be able to summon is the Spike Blockade Tower. This is the bread and butter of the Squire class. This is your wall that also does damage back, so it's very handy. Anything that comes up, whacks it, gets hurt. So that's pretty handy. Now, the nice thing about this is a lot of times on certain maps, the first wave is the hardest. You've got multiple areas you may have to defend for, or defend from, that you don't have enough mana to start off to drop a lot of things. Now the nice thing about this wall here is you can drop it, like say on this map, on deeper wells. You could drop it here at the top of the stairs on both sides, or on the stairs, wherever you want it, and the mobs coming up hitting it will die. So it is both defensive and offensive in a sense. So that's very handy for you to get through the first wave. Now you have the second one that you can summon, which is the Bouncer Blockade. Now the Bouncer Blockade is a little bit more offensive based than the wall, but it doesn't have as much health. If you notice here with my tower stats, this one has about 19.8 thousand health, where this one here only has 13,000, so you can see the difference. Now this little guy here, when a mob gets up to right about where I'm standing now, it'll bounce out. Those spikes will hit it. Not only will it do damage, but it'll knock the mobs back. Works very well for defending different points because you'll be knocking the mobs back and then they'll have to walk back up, get hit by it again. So you're not going to have a lot of mobs hitting it at one time, unlike the walls, where you can get a big traffic jam on the walls, a bunch of mobs hitting at a time, where this will be knocking them back. So it takes a little bit less damage in that sense, but it does have less health. So something to keep in mind. Works very handy in certain situations. If you can put it on the right spot on the map, it could knock mobs off the edge and the lava, off the edge of the map. Something to keep in mind. Okay, your next mob, or excuse me, next tower you can summon is the Harpoon Turret. Now this is the ranged tower. Unlike pretty much all the Apprentice towers, this is the one that has the longest range. This guy here shoots big bolts, big giant arrows. It's pretty much a crossbow on a stand. So something to keep in mind in this, the accuracy is very low for air units. Unlike the magic missile towers and the other apprentice towers that pretty much hit the mob if it's in range every time, this one will miss a lot of times. Now, to compensate for that, you have to place it so that whatever flying units are coming into the map, you place it to where they're coming straight at the turret. If they're coming straight at it, they'll hit it. That's not a problem. Just when they're flying a little bit on an angle sideways, you might miss. Now, the biggest benefit to this particular tower is it pierces. They'll shoot a big, huge arrow at the mobs, and it'll go through the first one, the second one, third one. If they're all in a line, it can hit multiple mobs at a time. Very, very handy. So keep that in mind. Try to place it to where you're going to have the most mobs walking in a straight line so it can kill more at once. Alright, now the next one. This next one here is the bowling ball tower. Something that's not used that often. But in certain maps, certain situations, it can be very, very handy. What's nice about that is it's about a medium firing tower that drops out a bowling ball. Now obviously the bowling ball is affected by gravity, so you tend to want to place it on stairs, places where it can drop and roll. It works better on areas that are fairly skinny so it can bounce off the walls and ricochet. Now what's nice about the bowling ball towers is they knock mobs back. So it's got the added benefit of damage, but it's also kind of like the bouncer where it knocks the mobs back. So you could get away with, say, two bowling ball towers in a situation where they're trying to get them up the stairs and they're not going to get there because they're constantly getting knocked back. So you wouldn't have to necessarily run a wall, depending on the map difficulty and whatnot. So very, very nice. They cost 7 defensive units, so they are fairly high. But if you can completely defend a certain side of the map with those, cost to benefit ratio is very high. Alright, now you've got this little guy right here, one of my favorites, Slice and Dice. They do cost 8 defensive units, but they are very cool. I mean, just in the situation of using them, spinning around a bunch of swords, I mean, that's pretty cool. Anyway, their health is roughly about the same as the Bouncer Blockade, as you can see here. It's 13.9 thousand versus 13,000, pretty much the same. Now what's nice about this is it has a wide AoE. These guys spin around, and it would hit mobs probably about starting where I'm standing here. Even though the graphics don't show the swords out quite that far, this is normally about where they start taking damage. What's nice about this is they can attack a wide amount of mobs at the same time. Now the downside is, if you have ogres and whatnot, the health on this guy here isn't that high. So you gotta figure it's about 75% offensive with a little bit of defenses with the health, but it can be very, very good in certain choke points and whatnot. My preferred method is to use a Slice and Dice with a harpoon behind it, so it'll shoot and kill a lot of mobs before they get to the Slice and Dice, and the Slice and Dice finishes them off. So pretty cool. Alright guys, let's talk about the special abilities. The special abilities, actually grayed out because this is a starting class, but you've got, since he's level 0, you can't use those abilities right now, but I'll talk about them. The first ability is called Circular Slice. Now Circular Slice, what that does is he pretty much takes his weapon and spins in a circle, right? So, I don't use it that often. Certain situations might be kind of nice, it's kind of cool to watch, but as far as utility goes, I don't use it that often. Now the other ability is called Blood Rage. Now what Blood Rage does is it increases your movement speed, turns your guy red, and you do a lot more damage. I think your DPS goes up by about 3 times the normal amount, but it also depends on how many points you have in it. Now Blood Rage can be very handy if you're a DPS spec, or even if you're not just trying to help DPS an ogre down, and you have the extra mana, go for it, right? So yeah, that's a very neat ability, but the only thing different about it and the Squire's version, or excuse me, the Countess's version, which is the female Squire, her ability does the same thing, but it also buffs anyone near her. So that is a more friendly group play character than the male version. And then she also has Joust that she runs ahead with her weapon and knocks mobs back. So that's kind of cool as well. But I prefer the female, both for DPS and for doing towers, but it's a personal preference. If you like the looks of the male, go with the male. If you like the increased movement speed of the female, go with the female. So anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this video. I will also be putting them out for the other classes. Feel free to check them out. Enjoy.